We are back. Sam Seder, Emma Vigeland on the Majority Report. Emma will be back in just a second. Joining us now, welcome back to the program, Ben Burgis. He is, of course, both a columnist at Jacobin and a host, or I should say co-host host of Give Them an Argument with Ben Burgis. Ben, great to see you.
Yeah, great to be back.
40th birthday of Michael's yesterday. Trying to do a little bit of a celebration. Let me ask you this: where do you think, how many times has it occurred to you to be like wondering, like, I wonder what Michael would be making of this? Because, it's weird to think about now, but he left us 3 months, 4 months after like Bernie had left the primary. Mm-hmm. We were still more or less in lockdown. Everybody's still sort of like so it's like this stasis. Biden hadn't even gone, I think, at that point to the convention. I mean, a lot of stuff. I mean, the pace of things has picked up over the past decade, it feels to me. Maybe the last 8 years, but certainly in the past 3 years, a lot has changed. Like, how often do you contemplate, like, I wonder what Michael would have made of this?
Pretty often, honestly. I think part of the thing is sometimes I think I know the answer because, I can remember, like I had conversations with him or, even I heard him say things on air or whatever that are like seem like really relevant to whatever's going on at a given moment. But a lot of the times I feel like I actually don't know because part of what I always really valued about those conversations was that there was like a little bit of unpredictability there, that there was, the sort of way that, like, I don't know, I can remember a bunch of times when he wouldn't exactly argue, with what I'd said, but like I'd like say some stuff and he'd be like, yeah, but like on the other hand, right, and he would like complicate things in a way that I always found really, really useful, the other sort of layers that he would bring to things, and there's just no way of extrapolating that. Yeah, but on the other hand, from, the stuff that he said when he was alive.
Yeah, it's interesting. I've found myself asking that question a lot, both in regards to like, there's a lot of different sort of things that areas in terms of Trump, in terms of like assessment of what Biden has done, how we were pretty down on Biden. I mean, both. I was particularly down on his chances to ever get the nomination. I was wrong on that assessment. But also in terms of like where he would move, how much influence Bernie would have, how much influence maybe even Warren would have. Like, where would he be more Buttigieg than Bernie, at least both aspirational and in terms of like activity. I don't know. It's fascinating to sort of speculate, but of course, who knows? Where do you see his influence? Do you see it anywhere, like as you cross online?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think that, in some ways, yeah, I guess, I guess I do, see it like both in the sort of direct sense, like people will talk about, reading his book, and in I don't know, a more intangible sense that, that I think about people who maybe even have, started, come on the scene a little bit later, but, I think there's I think that, yeah, I'll think about like, I don't know, like last time I was on the show, it was with Jason Miles. I think, man, it is a real shame those two never got to meet each other. I think Michael really would have enjoyed that guy, but I mean, like, I think that like something like something like what Jason's show brings, I think there's like something of that kind of like nuance and humor that that reminds me just a little bit of what I always used to value so much about what Michael did. But I mean, the influence question is really hard in general, because I think that one of the things that Michael was really good at was presenting things in ways that were compelling to a lot of different people who don't necessarily always get along, right? Or it's certainly haven't necessarily in the last in the last 3 years. So I don't. I mean, I guess tried to be as concrete as possible about this. I think about Michael's influence on internationalism, about sort of the way that he would bring this kind of deep knowledge about what was going on in a lot of places that American leftists aren't necessarily usually tracking. And I think about the way in which he would sort of engage in complexity when he found it appropriate, but also that he would like have this sort of really strong moral core to what he was saying that was alongside that. And I guess all I could say is that not enough, right? It's like I wish there was more.
Tell us about this. Came up just briefly, I think, with Luke, right? Was it the Idaho Jordan Peterson conference? What was that, and what did you guys do there? Is that that's where you met?
Yeah, it is. It is where I met Michael. Yeah, I think I'd listened to him. I'd listened to TMBS a bit before I met him, but that's where I actually met him. I also met Luke for like 10 seconds at that conference, because at one point he and Michael actually went out to canvass in Idaho. But the actual conference, right? So it was back in 2018, Doug Lane, who was at that time doing the Zero Books podcast, had Jordan Peterson booked as a guest on the podcast. And then Peterson, or more likely somebody who works for him, had backed out after scheduling the appearance. Presumably they'd like Googled the show and realized it wouldn't be a softball interview. And Doug was mad about that enough. And of course, Doug, I should also say, was the one who published Michael's book Against the Web, as well as my books. And Doug was mad about that enough that he, I don't know who reached out to who, but somehow or another he hooked up with this group in Idaho, New Symbolism. They end up organizing this, what they called a conference in lieu of a debate, to responding to Jordan Peterson, a conference in lieu of a debate. And I met Michael there, and I remember the first conversation I actually think technically the first conversation I ever had with him was in line at lunch. It was like it was like a Chipotle or something. And we both somehow admitted to each other that while we both, we thought he was a monster as president, we did enjoy Donald Trump as an insult comic. And then a little bit later in the day, Doug got there. And since he owed us both meetings for our books, he ended up taking us both out to bar in the middle of the afternoon, and I ended up having a pretty in-depth conversation with Michael there. And then after that, there was there's this like mini controversy that was going on all weekend because people were upset about this video that Doug had done for Zero Books, and Michael did this very Michael-y thing, which is that he came up with this impression. I must have heard like 30 versions of it over the course of the weekend, because he kept like crafting it and adding new stuff to it. And every time, bumped into each other, he would give it to me, verbally. Which was an impression of Doug doing a version of the video that would have been bad enough to justify the backlash. And like 30 times over the course of the weekend, he like comes up to me and sort of does this impression. I start cracking up. And then he went back to Brooklyn on, I believe it was the Sunday night. And I only left Idaho on the Monday morning, but on Monday morning, I was in the Boise airport, and Michael messaged me to ask for my email address, and then I got this email from him where he had, I don't know, Matt Leck having told me since that he didn't help him with this. I don't know who did. I think there's some production stuff going on. Somebody did, but he'd actually done this like pretty professionally produced version of the bit, like complete with a parody of like the music that Doug would use as the background music in his videos. That he sent me. He sent me over email. And I remember just thinking, it's like, oh my God, this is like, okay, I assume he also sent it to Doug. Maybe there was like one or two other people who got it, but it's like, this is so much effort to put into making like 4 people laugh.
Have you ever, there is no way he did that technically himself. I am sure he enlisted somebody.
Yeah, I may have layered the music on. I don't remember the request. I remember doing a Democracy Now! One where I put the Democracy Now! Music and he did like Amy Goodman impression, but
that's funny. Yeah, his impressions obviously legion, but that's really funny. Well, Ben, anything else you want to add on this birthday? We're trying to make it more of a celebration maybe than we've done in the past couple of years. But anything else you want to add?
Yeah, I mean, I guess, I was still thinking about the impressions and the ones like how good many of those were, and how equally good the off-air ones were to the on-air ones. I'm thinking about like Bhaskar Sankara. He Michael did one, or if you learned his name from Michael, Bhaskar Sankara, to save his life, he could never get that right. That he would do this impression of Bhaskar's parents being like mad that their son was founding this communist magazine instead of like going to medical school and making some money. And yeah, I mean, I think that sort of sameness of the on-air and off-air personas says something about him. And I guess I would just say that it's wild to think about the fact that he would have only just now been turning 40. That when he died, he made enough of a mark that Lula da Silva was tweeting about it.
Yeah,
and I can't even imagine how much more that would be if he were still with us now. And I really miss the guy, and I am really grateful for that time together.
Ben Burgis, supposed to give him that argument. Thanks so much for your time today. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Ben.
Thanks, Sam.
thanks, man.